It's a Super Bowl year for CBS. They are broadcasting the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, Nevada for this upcoming season that has a ton of great games on the Tiffany Network and the voice of the NFL on CBS and so many amazing moments on that network of CBS Sports. Jim Nantz, kind enough to call back into the Rich Eisen Show. Hello, friend.
Hello, friend. The day after the scheduled release, we all are making our flight bookings and plans for the fall. I'm all excited. I wish we had a chance to go to Germany or England. It's not on our ledger, but it's going to be a great season. I'm so excited about the games that are before us now.
Now, again, do you know how deep into the season do you know which games you're doing right now, Jim?
I have a pretty good idea for the first 17 weeks. Obviously, 18 is up in the air with all those divisional matchups and a lot of obligations to each of the broadcast partners. So that's impossible to handicap. But I could rattle off right now 1 through 17 as best odds at this point.
Okay, so because we have a graphic, our crack Rich Eisen Show staff has put together notable CBS games, and I'm wondering how many we nailed. Let's start with Eagles-Patriots. You're there for that one, right, Jim?
I'll be there for that one. Tony Romo, Tracy Wolfson. We all are looking forward to being at Gillette Stadium to open up the season with the NFC champs, the salute to Tom Brady, which we talked about last night on the NFL Network together, and the big presentation before the game, which I hope to be able to participate in.
Yeah, did you hear
two different shows for this?
You said that last night. You said to RKK, hey, I can make it down from the booth to be part of that. Have the Patriots heard your initial offering of your services?
I'm still waiting by the phone at this point, but hey, they've got a lot of planning to do. And as I alluded to last night, there'll be a lot of people nervous about, well, wait a minute. We got to come on the air and all of that. We'll be fine. I mean, I know how to climb out of the booth many times, in fact, at Gillette to run down to give the trophy away.
That's
a little
right.
bit of a high wire act. So now I can just do it in reverse, go from the field up to the booth, no problem.
Just for Brady. And that's right.
Yeah,
so last night.
I need to be there for that. I'm so happy it worked out on our watch, and it just feels very fitting. I said last night, 102 Brady games in a New England uniform. I might have been rounding up a little bit because I think all total, I think it's 106, including his Tampa career, but it's somewhere right around 100 in a Patriot uniform, almost a third of his games. I had, along with the great Phil Simms and with Tony, we had a chance to see that many Brady games in person.
And that'll be week one. And then I believe, the crack staff is chosen too because, Ravens at Bengals is significant. But I imagine you and Tony, I think you said last night, you're going to be Jets at Cowboys. You're going to get Rodgers' first road game, right?
Let's set the record straight here. Anytime you have a doubleheader window.
Yes.
On CBS, so you're looking at the two games, you can automatically cross off whatever the 1 o'clock matchup is. We're always going to do the 4:25.
There you go. Okay.
Doesn't matter how sexy the matchup is at 1. The 4:25 game, this pertains to not only CBS but Fox as well, is going to be about 50% higher. So there's no way we're doing a 1 o'clock game, no matter how good it is. And yes, the Jets-Dallas is one of the best games that we procured. It's a big one. Rodgers on the road, Rodgers against Dallas. Jets' first road game with this new look. I'm thrilled by this game.
That is going to be something else. I mean, Rodgers in Dallas, I remember that was his first coming out party in the old Texas Stadium when it was Favre versus your current partner in your booth, Romo. That was on a Saturday night on NFL Network, and both teams were incredible, and it was for the lead in the entire conference, and Favre, of all things, gets hurt, and Rodgers comes in, and I'll never forget, we were all sitting there in the end zone watching that, waiting for halftime, saying, oh my goodness gracious, this guy is amazing. And that guy was, of course, Rodgers. I'll never forget that. Never.
It was early for NFL Network to be doing games. It might have been even season 1. It was a big one sitting out there all year long. People were saying, this is not going to be on one of the major networks. No, it's going to be on NFL networks. There was tremendous buildup. I remember it well. It's hard to believe it's that long ago. And how everything has grown from there is pretty interesting. But Jets-Dallas is one of the top games of the year for any network.
And then maybe you're going to get Patriots at Jets the following week? You think you'll be there in New York?
Now I'm going to get into the handicapping business here. There's a Denver at Miami game that's out there. This is a regional week for us.
There you go.
But I would right now go with New England at the Jets.
That'll be something else, too. I mean, Rodgers, I know there's tons of, we got on the screen right here. We don't have to do the entire interview this way. There's tons of Chiefs Arrowhead logos on our screen right now, but there's a ton of Jets logos up there too, Jim. I mean, this is story of the offseason, story of many seasons that once again the Jets are putting their eggs in the basket of a first ballot Hall of Famer who was done with his Packers career. It's unbelievable how this is happening again. And this young Jets team appears to be this is the exact ingredient that they need right now, it looks like.
And they have a receiving core, a great blend of young talents like Garrett Wilson to go with guys that some of the stalwarts that he's comfortable with coming over from Green Bay. So there is no reason for this not to work out for the Jets. It's not like Aaron Rodgers has lost his fastball. He can still play, and barring any injuries here, this should be a really big season for them.
Jim Nantz here on the Rich Eisen Show day after the schedule comes out. How many Chiefs games do you think you're getting? I know you mentioned that number.
I'm going to shuttle down to the first one that I see is Kansas City at Minnesota week 5.
Mm-hmm.
A doubleheader game. We know that Minnesota had a very good regular season last year. Of course, KC is arguably the biggest catch in the entire schedule for anybody. We know about the Dallas history. Everybody wants the Cowboys, but KC's on that level now as the champs and with Mahomes. And then later on, 2 weeks later to be exact, week 7, I anticipate that we'll be doing Chargers at KC, doubleheader game 425. And then we'll see them again weeks 14, 16, and 17. This is what I alluded to last night. In the month of December, basically going to live in KC. I've got Buffalo at KC week 14, Vegas at KC on Christmas Day, Cincinnati at KC on New Year's Eve. So those are blockbuster games. Buffalo and Cincinnati, especially, those two matchups against KC. You're talking, in the Cincinnati case, the last 2 AFC championship matchups came down to a field goal in each case. And then, of course, Buffalo and Kansas City with that epic divisional game a season ago, 2 seasons ago, I guess you would say now, and a great regular season game at Arrowhead last year. They come back. The Bills again come back to Arrowhead. And that's just a blockbuster for us. Those were games 1 and 2, I believe, on our hit list when we went in and talked to the league, and we got them.
And again, you may have, who knows, obviously, back-to-back Chiefs games when the playoffs begin. You may have that too, Jim. You may.
Well, I don't anticipate seeing them on, but you never know with only one team getting the bye. Maybe Cincinnati KC on December 31 is for the number 1 seed. Who knows? It's easy to project right now, but you don't know how a season breaks out and injuries and all that. But I think there's a really strong chance we'd see him divisional weekend and AFC Championship week, and maybe even in Las Vegas. So, you add it up. If they were to make that kind of run all the way to the Super Bowl, I think it adds up to 9 games that we would see.
Wow.
Yeah, maybe it's 8 or 9 games of the Chiefs. This is what it used to be like, getting back to how we started. Back in the Brady Belichick days, Phil and I would do 8 or 9 Patriot games a year, riding them through the playoffs and the regular season. So they were the flagship team of the network at that time, and rightfully so, and KC is in this era.
And could you imagine how much we would be making these connections between Mahomes and Brady, other than what you just mentioned, had Mahomes beaten Brady in that Super Bowl in Tampa a couple of years ago, Jim? Because this kid is the only one would think. Obviously, Allen is yet to make a Super Bowl, and Burrow has made one but lost it. He appears to be the only one that could possibly, in the realm of approaching the universe of Tom Brady's numbers, if the longevity and the success level can be sustained. I mean, that is a long way to go, but he is that special. Yeah. I think and I know fans are like sick and tired of hearing that already. Might have Mahomes fatigue. I hate to say, you better get used to it. We just talked about it, obviously, about what they're going to see through your microphone and your top-notch cruise lens. But this is the truth, Jim. That's what's at stake in a way this year.
Listen, people sometimes grow weary or tired of winners and the story repeating itself, but it's kind of like Tiger back in his heyday. You may root for him. A lot of people did. You may not root for him. And there were those out there that weren't rooting for him because they just grew tired of watching him play all the time. Why are you guys showing him so much? But the truth is, everybody wants to know what he's doing at all times. And that is the same that pertains to Mahomes. You want to know what he's doing. And he's got 3 Super Bowl appearances. He's got 2 rings. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to handicap it when you're talking about a player still in his 20s, and you've got so much more talent out there. I mean, it's just what the AFC has at the quarterback position. It's almost unfair. It really is. And I'm not saying that boasting because we're the AFC network, but you just rattle off some names, and you didn't mention Justin Herbert. You didn't mention Lamar Jackson. You didn't mention Trevor Lawrence. And there are other guys. I mean, Deshaun Watson. We can't draw any conclusions about what his ability is off the handful of games he played at the end of last season. What about Kenny Pickett? Is he going to be good? Who knows? Maybe Will Levis is going to be the guy that some people thought might go first off the board 2 weeks ago during the draft. Maybe Tennessee hit on something there. But, look, you got Aaron Rodgers now to add to that long list of talented quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, has he come back to life? Jimmy G. I mean, I think that was a great offseason acquisition by the Raiders. So I'm sorry, Tua. I left Tua off.
That's true. No, I know, but I'd do the same thing too.
On that list, you mentioned already Josh, and you mentioned Joe.
Yeah,
but it goes on and on and on, and it's just mind-boggling what's going on out here in the AFC with the quarterback position.
And C.J. Stroud with the Texans, and the quarterback that most analysts and observers generally thinks has the biggest upside of all the rookie quarterbacks, and Anthony Richardson winding up in Indianapolis. And just to bring it all.
I'm sorry to overlook those.
No. I mean, there's too many. You can't name all 16. But and then it's interesting that you equated Mahomes to Tiger because they both are wear red on Victory Sundays, right? I mean, like this is.
That's true.
This is.
No, it's getting to the point where the AFC. You're getting to the point where you go into the draft. Does anybody – now, I know there are exceptions, but you're getting to where, like, the quarterback position does not need to be addressed in most cases. Really true. That's unusual. Now, the same can't be said on the NFC side. Obviously, there are stars over there, but it doesn't have the star power that the AFC does. This was the first year, Rich, that the league was touting how the games would be interchangeable. I'm talking about the Fox and CBS packages.
Yes.
And it would look different. The reality is that we had more cross flexes in our major windows last year. We had games like Dallas at Minnesota. I mean, there was a whole slew of games that were normally in the Fox package. But you look at our lineup I just gave you, what I suspect. We didn't run through them all.
Right.
We have the Philly at New England game that normally would belong to Fox. We got that one. Other than that, and yes, and other than Washington playing at Dallas on Thanksgiving, but I take that one off the board because that's become kind of a pretty standard thing to do, make it a divisional game in a lot of cases on Thanksgiving. We really went in our major windows all heavy with the AFC, or at least the league did, where you really felt the difference of the new business model was in our 1 o'clock games on a doubleheader day, and just emboldening what our overall package is. I was adding it up last night that I had nothing better to do after that.
You love the schedule too, Jim. You love the schedule. I love it. I love how much you love the schedule.
I love the schedule. I love the schedule. I love the draft, and I love living it vicariously through you.
Thank you, Jim.
But we have in our 100-some-odd game total, 100 games. We have 31 games by my total 31 games that before there were a smattering of cross flexes. You know what I mean by that?
Yep.
NFC games on the road at an AFC opponent or NFC at NFC. Those just came to us in recent years. We get a handful of them. Didn't used to be that way. But 31 of our games are games that normally, not normally, in the old days, and that's not real old. I'm talking 5 years ago, we would not have seen. So where are they? Because you're not seeing them on the headline games. The AFC is so strong, we just packed it, or the league packed it, with primarily AFC matchups. But inside of our 100-game package, there are 31 games that would be considered cross flexes or NFC at NFC games that formally were not a part of the picture for our business model.
Well, and then you again, just to wrap things up on the CBS schedule of notable games, I think others that we think you're going to be at. You've got on Sunday, the 26th of November, the Bills at the Eagles. So you got Hurts on your package twice. Obviously, the Thanksgiving Day game in Dallas. That's 2 Dallas Dak Prescott games. Then you also have the San Francisco 49ers, Bengals at 49ers there, Chiefs at Vikings. Essentially, if you had a peg, like, okay, who are the quarterbacks that can lead a team to championship play in the NFC, you've got them as well. You've got, I mean, good Lord, you're fired up. I don't blame you. This is a heck of a schedule.
I'm glad you brought it up. I wanted to bring it up last night, but Cincinnati at San Francisco is I believe it's October 29th.
Yes, it is.
Week 8.
Mm-hmm.
That is a national doubleheader game. And, you take Cincinnati traveling out west. That could have been our Super Bowl matchup in February. They both lost in the championship games. It's a darn attractive game there that I'm looking forward to being able to have out west. It's all high quality. And by the way, I know I'm sounding like I'm bragging about what our team did, and I am proud of our Dan Weinbergs and David Bursons and everybody that was had their hands on the schedule business for a couple of months. I know all the networks operate the same. They all try to politic and build a case for what they need. Can't protect everything that you have. But I was looking at all of the networks last night. I think somehow there is dilution because you have Amazon and you have Monday night, and that's definitely been upgraded.
Mm-hmm.
You have Sunday night, and you have to make, of course, CBS and Fox happy. In the end, I think everybody's happy. I looked at it and didn't walk away saying, wow, that's a weaker schedule than they normally have.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow the games worked out where they're attractive enough, and everybody did well.
I love it.
But I'm especially proud of what we've been handed and what we worked hard for, and it looks good. I know it's only May right now, and
yeah, I know.
Got months to go, but I'm already getting fired up to be reunited with Tony and Tracy and Jim Rickoff and our amazing director, Mike Arnold, and having a Super Bowl season and getting the band back together.
I look forward to that. Obviously, Jim, I appreciate the call. Just one last thing, if I may, the Thanksgiving games last year have been renamed Madden Celebration, and I know a lot of folks who are growing up think oh yeah, he's the video game guy, or he was the guy who was on NBC with Al, and he was a CBS guy first. And I'm wondering if you've got a good Madden story at all for when you were starting out and you met him, or when you were, already a longtime CBS veteran. Anything Madden related story time.
First off, he was CBS first, and by far he was CBS the most.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at his longevity, until that year, in December of '93, when we lost the NFC package on that fateful day of December 17th, 1993, and we knew we were going to be out of the NFL business, and that's when, of course, John went in another direction. There was a lot of time for all of us to spend with John. I got to do sidelines one time in my career. I wasn't very good at it, but it was in 1987, and I did it with Pat and John. which was obviously it's memorable now. I'm going back so many years, 30-something years ago, 36 years ago.
Wow.
I was scared out of my mind going to a production meeting with him, but he was always very generous. And as life would move on, I moved to Pebble Beach, California,
Mm-hmm.
and John lived in Pleasanton, California, up in the East Bay. But he had a home right off Ocean Avenue in Carmel by the Sea, which was 1 mile from my house. And I didn't get to see him as much as I should have, but I saw him on occasion for breakfast, cup of coffee, a walk. This is going to sound really bizarre because I was intimidated by him, and he was not an intimidating guy. That's the last thing he would want anybody to ever feel, because he certainly didn't try to admit anything to you that made you feel uncomfortable. But he was just so big, and I had so much respect and appreciation for him. Look, my job has taken me everywhere. I've been in the company of a number of presidents. I've had a dinner sitting at the same table as the Queen of England. These are all things that I never deserved, but somehow they landed in my lap. But when I was around John, I just never quite broke through that barrier of being in awe of him, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
And he's the most normal guy ever. But I just think it speaks to my love, respect, and appreciation for him. I looked up to him so much. I lived a mile from him. I wish in retrospect, I wish I had seen him 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he would have wanted me 3 days a week, but he was a hang guy. John was never in a hurry. He never tied his shoelaces. He walked around with sneakers with his shoes untied.
Really?
He didn't like to be pinned down. People would say to him, "Hey, your shoes untied." Yep. They didn't know that's how he wanted to operate. He never wanted to break up the hang. I just, you get older in life, you think, I should have handled that relationship a little bit better. Man, he was good to me. I wish I had more time with him. It was there. I know it was there if I had a little more self-confidence in that relationship. Never said that to anybody before, but as I'm just sitting here opening up my mind to it, man, he was just an amazing guy. And I love to watch the way he interacted with people. People would approach him, and he had time for everyone. And he was a man of the people. Who wouldn't want to aspire to be that, where everybody could relate to him? And I did too. I just had a certain level of admiration that was so high that it made me not natural in communicating with him, because I just looked up to him so much.
Well,
hope that makes sense.
It does,
That's
Jim.
what's in my heart.
1,000,000%. And I love that you share that with me and the group here and the audience. And just know this: you are in a position. What a position to be in, sitting there in a booth and in the Metroplex on a Thanksgiving in front of that monster audience, being able to tell folks of a different generation about Madden and keep his legacy alive. That's in your hands, and that is going to be amazing for you and the Madden celebration. So that's a pretty
it's big. I will say two more
thing.
Number one, yeah. Well, I got to be the voice of the Madden game. I believe it was 5 years, and at the time it was the longest run anyone had.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil and I did it together, and it meant a lot to lend a voice to that. And you're right, most people think it's about the video game, and his record as a coach, which was so short-lived, and his win percentage was off the charts, 100 wins. I mean, very few losses. What he did to motivate and inspire his players and how they reacted to him years later is pretty special. But Sandy Montag was John's. Well, he started out like working for John and went on the road with him.
Mm-hmm.
Then he became his manager and agent, and Sandy's been my manager and agent on the broadcasting side for decades now. And he would always be kind of a go-between. Hey, John wants to see you for breakfast at Katie's place in Carmel. Or John, this or that. And, I think he probably understood that it was unnatural for me to feel like I could reach out. I was shy, and that's the bottom line. But when it came to Thanksgiving Day, Sandy would always say, hey, before you go on the air today, give John a call. Give John a call. So Tony and I did that. I think Phil and I did it too. So whatever, I've done the Thanksgiving Day games now for several decades. Every year, Detroit, then Dallas, then Detroit, then Dallas. And I used to make that phone call on Thanksgiving Day from the booth, wish him happy Thanksgiving, because I knew how much it meant to him. At Sandy's urging, and, you know, I'd get up the nerve to be able to call his cell phone and say, hey, John, thinking of you today. He was great. I mean, he watched everything. He didn't miss any game on any network. He was all in on the NFL. And in the end, great coach, Hall of Famer, legendary legacy with his video game. But he might have been, when it's all said and done, you add up all the parts, the greatest ambassador the league ever had. He stood for the good things in the game. And again, everybody related to him. Players, the coaches, the media, and especially the fans. He was their voice, and he was the man of the people. So Thanksgiving should belong to him when it comes to the NFL business.
You're the man, Jim Nantz. Always appreciate this. I do not take it for granted. You are awesome. Thanks again for the call.
Thanks, brother.
And I appreciate you saying on the NFL Network last night that this is a new tradition, unlike any other. Calling into the show.
It is. We've done it many years.
We have.
I write it in. I can. Well, hopefully you'll have me back next year.
Anytime, Jim. We'll chat before then. Thanks again. Be well. Enjoy your summer.
You're the best. See you, buddy.
Right back at you. Jim Nantz, everybody. Come on. There he goes. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.